Brains and Birdies. I'm Allie Knight, PGA and LPGA certified professional, and I'm here with Dr. Mark Harmon, sports performance specialist. And today we are talking about swing speed, how to train our brain and the body.
Speed is not just physical.
That's
It's
right.
actually neurological.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so instead of just saying swing harder, because that's what we're trying to do when we're trying to gain speed. Swing harder. That's really not always the case. What we really need to do is swing faster.
Correct.
But we need to do it in a safe way. Yeah. And I've tried so many different ways to do this. If it's weighted clubs and sticks and apps, and there's all kinds of things out there now. And so, but with that, I've seen other people do it, and I've seen other people get injured.
Yes.
And where we just don't warm up properly, or we're not using the correct things to do the speed training with. And so you gotta be safe with it.
Quite a few patients who ended up showing up at my door because they were trying to increase their swing speed, did it unsafely, and ended up having spine injury and pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the best and the safest ways to speed train and to get faster.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of mirror what you were saying is people have a little bit of a misconception, right? They just think, oh, I just need to really go after it and swing harder. And inevitably, well, I mean, you tell me, if you're standing on a range with a student, you tee the ball and you say, now just swing harder. What happens to the ball?
Probably not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, if they get it off the tee, it's certainly not going to be accurate. Right. And that's because we've talked about in other podcasts, they have moved from that automaticity motor skills area of their brain into a more executive functioning area, and it's disrupting the signal to that automaticity area. So by trying to swing harder, they're messing up their own swing, and they're not allowing their body to do what it already knows how to do, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I say it's not about physical strength. It's actually neurology, right? Yeah. Which means the speed and the distance is about how quickly and efficiently the brain is sending those messages, right? Mm-hmm. And the signals to the muscle, the muscle coordination, all that is all that unconscious automaticity area. So if you just work on gathering strength, the brain doesn't know what to do with that strength because you didn't train the brain with the strength. Mm-hmm. So you end up with this balance, and it can cause everything from injury to yips to swing problems to everything in between, right? Mm-hmm. So what we want to do instead, the brain is processing this muscle movement and instruction. The speed is actually occurring at that junction between the nerve and the muscle fiber, right? So what we need to do is, and the good news is these things can actually be trained and improved. Yeah. Right. Now, and of course we always are barring a pathological issue, right? But in what I don't like the term normal, but I'm going to use the term normal or muggle. It's trainable and you can improve that speed. Right, but because the brain is coordinating with how those muscle fibers are firing, what rate they're firing, the coordination that they're firing, the timing that they're firing, all of that above, right? That all of that's overseen by the brain. Mm. So you can be the biggest, bulkiest person on the planet, makes no difference if that signal's slow.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, if you're in the gym and somebody's squatting twice as much as you could still be faster than them.
By a lot, actually. Yeah. Yeah. And so what that means is we have to train not to swing harder, but to swing faster. And that statement is intentional and is what's important. It's the detail, right? So what we actually want to work on is that swing speed. But most people seem to come about it with effortful swing harder.
Right.
And that's what we have to correct.
Yeah, it's like the harder is trying to muscle it and that be your faster, but it's really the opposite. It's like you're being a looser fast.
Exactly. And it's funny you should say that, because one of the things I often will tell, particularly my elite athletes, are kind of like yourself. It's like, I really need to hit, have a faster swing, hit farther, hit harder. I've said it to you before too. It's like, well, remember the object of the game is to get into the hole with the fewest strokes, not hit it the farthest. Right? That's long drive.
Right.
Right? So to some extent, you always temper that, but to another extent, it's like, okay, we can train that. Right? So when a golfer makes the conscious effort to swing harder, the brain will actually do the opposite. And so if you were to kind of consistently measure it, what you would see actually is a decline. You see a decline in accuracy. To some extent, oftentimes you can even see a decline. It's counterintuitive, but you see a decline in speed. Right? The reason you see that decline in speed is because, as I said earlier, things tighten up. The sequencing starts to get discoordinated because things are somehow firing in at different timings than they previously were. And we talked about cognitive load on another episode. Your cognitive load exponentially begins to increase. Therefore, the automaticity reciprocally exponentially decreases. Accuracy is out the window at this point. And the brain ends up, so our brain has evolved for one purpose: survival. Right? So it will actively work against you when it feels unsafe. Swinging harder feels unsafe. So that's one of the reasons all the things I just listed start to get out of whack and balance, and speed can actually start to decline. Right? So let me see if I can put this kind of in a bit of a different analogy, a little bit simpler. So let's say, and this is kind of the analogy of that network and firing of the pathway to the muscle fiber from your brain, right? And we're going to pretend they're both two rockets, and they're reaching that muscle fiber that's at your bird, right? So you have two engines. You have one that just fires continuously, and you have one that fires, stops, and goes and stops, goes and stops, goes and stops, goes and stops. Which one's going to reach the bird first?
I would think the continuous one.
Exactly. That's an automaticity dominated swing. It's smooth, it's rhythmic, it's coordinated. The muscle fibers are all firing and timing. The brain feels safe, and there's no stop gaps. Pardon me. I'm going to swing harder is a stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. Because every time you're giving that, remember, every time you give that brain an instruction, the whole motor skill muscle process has to start completely over. That's the start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, right? So what we need to do instead is find a way to swing rhythmically faster.
Right.
Which is significantly different than swinging harder.
Definitely.
And that's how we work with the brain rather than against it. We talked about increasing the cognitive load, that automatic muscle movement cycle constantly gets disrupted. Going back to those rockets, that's what's causing that engine to stop and go. So from the neurophysiological standpoint, this is actually, you can see this, right? So I would imagine you see it even in students.
Yes, of course. That's you all the time, and speed just disappears when you try to control it. And so you can say speed training is about giving the nervous system permission and increase your rhythm.
Exactly. So, because remember I said the nervous system is built for survival and to keep you from being injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's putting purpose stop gaps to try to keep you from getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have to do, as I said a minute ago, we need to make the rhythmic speed increase
Mm-hmm.
and make the brain feel safe.
Right.
Well, that comes with habituation and experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we think of that amygdala, which is right next to the hippocampus, for example, if you remember, is involved in memory. The amygdala is attached to it for a reason because it searches memory for danger.
Mm.
So the more experience you have of something that's not dangerous, the less it'll get tagged by the amygdala. But if
Okay.
you're swinging harder and you've got that muscle tightness and everything else, you're eventually gonna tweak something and get injured. And in our injury podcast, we talked about the brain starts to guard. We just had a
Mm-hmm.
conversation about someone that had a back injury, and they've struggled for almost a year now. They just started kind of getting to the point where they can swing a little more free.
Yeah.
Wonderful to see, by the way, isn't it?
Yes,
Because
it
it's like,
is.
wow, I've watched you really tighten up, and like you can almost see the fear on their face, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden they swing free, and that joy
Yes.
comes back. It's
Yes.
like I agree. One of the things I love doing what I do because it's like I love that speed can be where injury risk comes into play. So we have to modulate it properly so that we're swinging faster, but the body isn't getting in a position to get hurt or injured. Right? In the injury episode, we talked about our tension loads, from the end of the club to the spine and everything else. And of course, my previous life, spine was really a large part of where I would operate.
Mm.
You add on to that, the brain's number one job is that survival and protection. If it senses excessive stress, it immediately begins to try to limit and shut that down.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that's missing oftentimes when individuals are trying to increase their speed is to do it in a way that the brain doesn't get signaled, I have to save you from injury.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And the data around this is it's pretty interesting actually.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I remember you and I had this conversation, and it really just comes down. I mean, if you think of your spine as for lack of a better word, we're going to think of it just like a rod, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's multiple types. Right. It's not a physics lesson. We're not going to get into the physics of it. But if you think about, there's different types of forces, right? So there's linear forces, and then there's torque forces, which is the
Mm-hmm.
force of twisting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your brain is keeping tabs on that in your spine. And if it detects excessive torque,
Mm-hmm.
it actually will start putting in roadblocks in that motor skill unconsciously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's where we have to learn to how do we circumvent that brain monitoring.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's where it's not just about the speed; it's about the torque as well.
Exactly. So we're kind of laying these components out. And again, do you remember we talked about this? Like if you have a regular driver versus a weighted club or what,
So a regular driver that swung about 100 miles per hour
roughly.
is around 17.96. But then what happens if you take an overweight, stiff training aid and swing it slower, swing
Yep.
at 93 miles per hour instead of 100, it's going to produce more torque, but it's 18.29.
Right.
So you're going
Right.
to get more at that slower swing speed, but
So
you're moving slower, but you're putting more stress and torque on the body.
correct. So, but yeah, so it's Newton meters. But you're 100% right. Like you're right. So you're actually with the extra weight, you're swinging slower, which intuitively think, okay, so there's less torque. No, because you have that more weight, the torque has actually increased. right? So when you get these, when you get some type of swing trainer that is excessively heavier than your normal club, you have sent the brain into an alarm mode. I'm used to that 17 Newton meter torque. Wait a second, we're almost 19 now. Stop the presses. We got a problem, people. Survival, survival, survival. Shut everything down. We got to get this taken care of, right? And so they actually can work against you sometimes, right? Now, if you're working with them in the proper way, if you start at a much slower speed and then gradually increase it with those, you can have a little bit more success. I am more in favor of the swing trainers that don't give you excessive weight. They give you the same feel as your normal swing, as your normal club.
Yeah.
Maybe with just a smaller amount of weight, but everything else in the club your body's used to. Because it's not just that weight that's the problem. It's the sudden shift in flexibility of the shaft, the length, because you're visually monitoring that. I mean, your brain is monitoring all these things that you're not even aware of, right?
Exactly.
So all of a sudden, there's this entirely different looking thing in your hands that you're trying to swing, and the brain's just going, "What the heck is going on?" And it's starting to put stop brakes on.
Yeah.
Those stop brakes, if those swing trainers are used too much, can translate over into your regular club now.
Yeah. No,
and all of a
something
sudden
don't
there's
work.
swing problems,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So that really cannot emphasize enough how important it is to properly train for speed. Not just because I want people to be successful, but I don't want them being hurt. Right? You saw in the injuries podcast, I'm pretty passionate about that because I spent a large chunk of my life treating those individuals in severe pain, and I don't like people to be there. And if it's a small, simple change, such as how you're training, let's do that, right? So going back to kind of the torque, I want you to think of it this way, right? So most people, when you say 17.96 or 17.9, or even we'll round up both of them, one's 18, one's 19, right? If you say 18 Newton meters of force, what does that mean? Right? What the heck does that mean? Great. I don't know what to do with that, right? So what you can do, a good way to think about it is I want you to imagine, like, we'll say a pickle jar, okay? And you think, ooh, I want a pickle. I like garlic kosher dills myself. They're delicious, right? So, ooh, I want a pickle, right? And you go to open the lid, and you're not really thinking much of it. You just got to open it. It's like, wait a second, So you might twist a little harder. Still not going. Right? So what do? You tuck in your elbows, you lean over, and you really bear down on that thing, right? That is the equivalent of 18 Newton meters of force, right? So just to give you kind of a sense, but your body can handle that because it's monitored it. It's bracing itself. It's monitoring how much that force, and it's not anticipating injury because it's controlling everything that's going on. It knows exactly why there's excessive force. It knows exactly what's going on, and it's not sending up any alarm bells. Right now, if you take that same jar and it actually requires a pipe wrench to take it off, that's the difference between 18 and 19, which is pretty significant.
Wow, yeah.
Right? From the neurological standpoint, that higher torque, so if I'm all of a sudden twisting that with the same intensity as a pipe wrench, right? That's a big threat because my muscles don't typically take that kind of force. Right? Or my bone structures don't take that kind of force. Right? When you're swinging a club at a higher speed with an increased torque because of stiffness, weight, and everything else, from the physical standpoint, you are putting yourself, just from the basic physics, you're putting yourself at a much higher risk of injury.
Mm-hmm.
But your brain is also interpreting that as a danger and begins to limit the speed and limit the muscle firing, timing, and sequencing to try to save you.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up producing the opposite effect. I mean, I cannot tell you, and I'd be curious to know if you've experienced this or had students experience it. But I know there's been a lot of people that have come and seen me and kind of talked about this, and like, I don't understand. I started training it, and my speed went down.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to kind of explain this whole concept to them. At which point we were able to implement some drills, and they started going back up again.
Right.
I'd be curious if you've ever seen anything like that yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen
Yeah.
it sometimes in my own training.
Yeah. Okay. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
again, I've often wondered, is it just me? Am
Yeah.
I just seeing something no one else sees? But and so that's made up in my own little brain. So it's good to know
Yeah.
it is out there too.
Yeah. It happens.
So again, we go back to that concept, which if you don't take anything else from the day, take away the concept that familiarity is food for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can increase speed and keep familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make the brain familiar with higher speed. You just and we'll get to this kind of later on, but you use specific drills that will
Mm-hmm.
allow that
Mm-hmm.
to happen, and ideally use them in concert. The other thing that kind of comes into play in this, and for me it's a minor caveat, but it's a caveat nonetheless, is when you're using a swing trainer that's disproportionately heavy type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Someone will say, but I did have success at it. Right? I'm sure you did. I believe you. Right? But if we did a trial, which to some extent has been done, not directly the way I'm laying it out, but in other ways, you can take trials and put them together and realize they have been, is if I take someone who's training speed properly and someone who's using an overweight trainer, the person doing it properly will have a significantly faster speed improvement than someone who doesn't. So can you improve with it? Yes. I'm not making the claim that you can never improve with
Right.
it. But it takes your body significantly longer to become more familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
If your goal is to have it happen at a effective pace, then we want to take into consideration how we're training it.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be harder too to transfer it over when it's overweight.
Exactly. Just kind of like I mentioned earlier, your body's gotten used to this new thing that you've been using so much, and now you put your club in front of it, and it doesn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It doesn't know how to coordinate this lighter weight.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I love the speed toed approach. That newer, when what you do is you put it on the shaft of your own driver.
Exactly.
So then you were swinging your own driver shaft, and you're not using some random stiff shaft from other things that you have weights. So then it makes it more familiar too. You've got your own grip, and the weight distribution and the kick of the shaft is going to be
it's still similar.
Yeah, it's the same shaft.
It aligns with all those kind of principles that we just talked about.
Yes.
I personally have not used it myself yet, but based on what you're saying, it's aligning with all the principles of how to correctly train the speed.
Yes. So it's just so much easier and better to be training with your own shaft.
Yeah. Well, your brain's not saying this is foreign.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I can totally see that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and the goal is we don't want to overload the system. You're just going to gradually raise that swing speed. It's not going to be this significant jump of I'm 10 miles an hour faster overnight, right?
Yeah.
It's gradually training and getting hopefully faster over a period of time.
Well, and I think one of the important things there to kind of the concept to kind of add into all that, because based on what you're saying, I like the principle behind it, is when your brain, we've talked a lot about your brain feels danger, blah, 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 right? So there's also another side of it, right? The one side is when your brain feels something foreign, it sends alarm bells off, it starts shutting systems down. Or even once you get that heavier weight, when you go back to the lighter weight, your muscles can't coordinate and fire right because they're not used to it, right? But when you have something that has all this familiarity to it, maybe just a minor weight shift, but not huge perceptible, the brain no longer sees restriction, it sees exploration, right? Because our brains do love to learn.
Right.
So when it's something that there's a lot of familiarity, the grip is familiar, the shaft bend is familiar, everything else is familiar, there's just only one component that's changed. The brain now says, I have a chance to explore and learn more, rather than, hold on a second,
Right.
what the heck is going on here? And so that's what, based on kind of what you're saying, that's what I really kind of like about it.
Yeah.
About the idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the goal isn't to overload the system.
Right.
It's just to gradually raise that speed ceiling, and without then spiking the torque either.
Exactly. Because again, as someone who's worked with severe spine injuries, as someone who has experienced severe spine injury, we don't want that.
No.
Yeah, like we're just going to go ahead and just make that a ground rule. We don't want that. I want people to swing faster. I want people to enjoy the game more and feel like their accomplishment, but I don't want them hurt.
Right. And I think too, who are the people speed training, right? It might be seniors, ladies. I know for teaching aspect, those are the people coming to me that say, how do I get faster?
Yeah.
You're getting older, you're getting slower. Or, a lady wanting to hit it further, or circumstances like that, wherein when we're older, we don't want the joints, the stress on our joints.
Well, and we've lost that muscle movement,
right,
and that muscle strength. I mean, just I'm certainly not a young chicken anymore. I have lost strength. I used to drive a consistent, fairly good drive. Now I get glimpses of it. Right. And I accept I'm 25, maybe even more yards shorter. I will continue to get it's why they put the gold tees next to the red tees now, right? And it's fine. So, and in talking about particularly women and females, you don't have the bone density of man, right? Our testosterone increases bone density, it increases things that women may not have. Well, if you have a club that's designed for a man and their bone density, because it's only been tested on a man or developed with a man in mind, you risk injury. Because your body simply doesn't usually have those kinds of forces on it. That's not to say you can't handle those forces or train yourself to handle those forces. That's not the point. The point is, if you pick it up and immediately start trying to go at it, you have a significant increased risk for injury because it's not designed necessarily maybe with your bone structure in mind. And that's not to say every female doesn't have the bone structure. It's to say on average, women simply don't have the bone density of men. Then there's certainly ones out there that do. I personally would not make a rule with exceptions in mind.
Yeah, and I think that gives me even more reason to like the speed total even better.
Yeah, exactly. Because of all of the things you've talked about, how it goes on your own shaft and everything else, it's already somewhat adjusted. If assuming that you're hitting clubs adjusted for you, right? That you're not hitting men's clubs, right? Yeah,
using the right
exactly. And assuming you're not using your older brother's clubs, type thing. Yeah. So all that assumption, I think it's a fair assumption to say by far and away the majority of people do that. That in and of itself automatically takes some of that risk out, and so which is that's a great thing from my perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk now about some ways on how to actually train to get faster. I would say some good guidelines to start with is low volume and high intent. We want full rest, so making sure you swing and you give yourself 30 seconds or a minute in between sets.
Correct.
So you're not just go, go, go. You gotta
Yep.
reset. No mechanical thoughts, because we just want to be fluid. We want to be relaxed.
Go back to the don't swing harder.
Right. You just yep. And then tracking, using a radar, using a TrackMan, using something to be able to kind of measure yourself and keep track of it if it's a lot of these things. And I know the Speed Toad has an app where you can put it in there and kind of keep track and see where you're improving and whatnot.
Right. And we'll talk a little later about that as well, because you can, just like everything, that can go too far,
right?
Which we don't want. Yeah, tracking is absolutely something that, I mean, if you're truly intent on improving, if you don't measure it, how do you know you've improved?
Right. Yeah. Because exactly. And what we're really doing here when we're doing this, it's a nervous system training, which it's not a physical conditioning.
Correct.
It's getting your nervous system faster.
Yeah. Correct.
And so from there, let's go to the first drill.
Sure.
And it's just the max intent swings. We don't use a ball. You're gonna get your driver out, and or the Speed Toad, and you're just swinging. You're just gonna hit 3 to 5 swings where you're just trying to go as fast as you can.
Yep.
No ball. You're just swinging, because a lot of times you put that ball in front. You see the ball,
things change.
now you go slower. It's crazy. So it's just no golf ball. You're not hitting anything. You're just trying to train that nervous system to go fast.
Right. So, and the only thing I'll add in there for me, and again, I've kind of said it all along the podcast, I will emphasize as fast as you can without hurting yourself. Because I have on more than one occasion, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, someone gets up there and they think they're training properly and they just go at it. And next thing you know, you see them fall to the floor, holding their back, screaming. And it's like, yeah, you didn't stay within your bounds. A 51-year-old man like myself probably shouldn't go at it as hard as someone like you who's going out and playing every day, when I may only get to play once or twice a week. My muscles are not as flexible as that, so that would be the only caveat I'd put. It's a great drill. Just keep in mind, the idea isn't to go out and hurt yourself. It's just to have that experience of swinging faster and your body feeling okay with it. So, and me, myself, and I would probably modify it the teensiest bit by just adding in steps, right? So swing at 75% full swing, then 85, then 95, then just to give your body some time to warm up and get used to that faster speed, so that it's not getting upset, because that injury is coming because even when you're swinging your fastest, you can still tighten up. Because you're trying harder.
I think before you do any of this, you got to warm up.
Exactly.
You don't want to just step up.
And that's a very important distinction, because I know people that they would think, well, I set my bag down. All right, let's go. And it's like, oh no. Oh no.
Because that's actually what the Speed Toad in the app does. You have a warm up.
Oh, that's perfect.
And then you do swings, and you start at 60%, 70%,
that's perfect,
and work your way up, and then you go at it.
So when you do that, now you're training what the brain thinks is fast, not just swinging harder. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So the next drill is a step through drill, and
you like these?
Yeah.
I see you do these a lot. You like these?
Great.
Yeah.
You just kind of start with your feet together and do a step and swing, and that really helps get all that weight transferred to the left side. A lot of people don't actually get their weight transferred through, and they kind of hold back, and so a lot of times you see a big jump in swing speed from a weight transfer, if it's forward or backwards. It could be, it's both ways.
Yeah, it could go down or up.
So that's a great one for that. The next one is the contrast
I love this one.
training, and that's 2 or 3 max speed swings, and then just hit a normal shot.
Yep.
So it's kind of just alternating where you go at it, and I'll do this too where I'm going at it. I don't care where the ball goes.
And that's a wonderful distinction, because I was going to say the one thing I could see tripping people up is they're worried about what happens to the ball.
Right.
And this is one of those times you're not paying attention to the outcome.
Right.
The ball is there just to normalize the experience and create that one extra thing of familiarity. That's it. What happens to it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's even why too I love the TrackMan, because you can just put it up big swing speed, and that's all you see, and you're not seeing where the ball goes at all. You're just hitting it, and then that's it. But this one's great because you do 3 all out max swings, and then dial it back and just do a normal one. And it's kind of cool to see, because then it's a lot of times you go back to the normal one and you're like, wow, that was way faster than my other normal.
Or you're giving your brain this comparative contrast, which is what it likes.
Yes.
And so now it's beginning to relearn and understand what fast is.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can differentiate your faster swing and your normal swing.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing is the normal is faster than the normal.
Correct. Yeah, it's still because it's going to feel slower because you've recalibrated your brain a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. I love watching those things too, because they're cool.
Yeah. And so another drill is just a rhythmic training.
This is one of my favorites. I use this one a lot.
Yes, and it's just, and I think this one's not talked about as much.
I would agree.
I would say so. I like this one a lot. You basically get a metronome, you put it up to a faster swing speed, this more of a speed that you want to feel, and you try to swing just to that metronome of that that tick tock, whatever you got to find your number of what the cadence needs to be.
Because they are different.
Right.
We saw that when I was showing you this drill. And someone else had it at a different speed, and you're like, that's way too slow. That's way too slow.
Yeah.
So we had to go yours higher before we could get you up even farther. Yeah. So that's important.
Yeah. So you do that, and you do 20 swings doing it, and you're just concentrating on that metronome. And
so and this is what I mean by, so we've given kind of 4 drills, right? If you really want to maximize the training here, there's a couple of things to think about. First off, like any type of training, give yourself rest, and you shouldn't spend weeks just doing speed.
Right. No.
Speed should be at most 1 to 2 days a week type thing, tops. Right. But and then even then, I'm going to say even further, limit it to about 15 minutes. In say an hour practice. It really should be even a short period of time. But use these in concert, right? So for example, as we look through them, they're all doing something slightly different in the brain, right? So the first one, I gotta remember the name, max intent, right? Okay, so max intent, great way to kind of start to warm up. You're not hitting a ball, you're not doing anything, but you're getting that brain automatically recalibrated to a little bit faster speed. Then you add in a contrast. Here's what a slow speed feels like. Here's what a faster speed feels like. They're both safe, right? You're both safe. Your brain now goes, cool. Step through. Here's what the weight shift should feel like when I'm doing this. Okay, so now the brain's going, okay, so I can still continue to shift the weight the way I want to and the way I need to, but I can do it at a little faster pace, and I'm safe and I'm okay. Now you add that rhythmic in, which, remember, that motor skills kind of automaticity unconscious part is a rhythmic control because it's dominated by the cerebellum, right? So when you add all of these together, they have created this actual training protocol that's addressing every part of the brain that normally gets in the way of your speed. That's when we sat down and I talked about, here's some of the drills I use, and you talked about some of the drills you use, because like step through, I'm aware of it, but I haven't really ever used it much. But then when we started looking through them and I started kind of thinking about them, I thought, okay, this is actually an entire regimen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with 4 drills.
Yeah.
Fortunately, myself, I haven't tried the aid, so I can't speak directly to what it's like. In theory of what it's the kind of what it's doing and how it's working works in concert with how the brain trains and thinks of speed in a way that allows you to do it more effectively. But yeah, that was, as we were going through the drills, that was one of the things I thought about, was actually a regimen when you take these together.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, so let's talk about some common speed mistakes now.
Yeah.
Because like we said earlier, we talked about earlier, was just kind of tracking is good, but then we don't want to obsess over it. So explain that.
Correct. A couple things. First, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we don't point out you can do this right, but you can also do it incorrectly, right? So from that standpoint, I'm gonna throw you back to answer your question. I'm gonna throw you back a little bit to our cognitive load, right? So remember, as cognitive load goes up, motor skill goes down, and it's a reciprocal relationship. So the more you think, the less your motor skills are going to perform, right? So you have to flow is finding that perfect balance. That is flow, is when it's in perfect synchrony and balance, right? Which is ultimately is performance where we want to be, right? So if we'll take an analogy that way and look at it this way. If every time you swing, all you're doing is focusing on what your speed was, you haven't taught your brain a damn thing. Right? Matter of fact, you're doing the opposite. You're teaching it's unsafe because you are so worried about what that number is. You're creating anxiety, what the brain is picking up, and then it's connecting with speed. So you are actually creating some of the very problem you're trying to overcome. Right? So what I recommend with people is track it. Have whether it's a simulator or radar or whatever, have one that you can either have somebody else take the numbers down if it doesn't have a memory, but I don't know too many out there these days that don't have a memory of at least 10, 20 swings. Right? Otherwise, don't look at the number at all. Just do your drill. Then go back afterwards and evaluate the numbers. Were they or have pauses in between. If you're someone that's like, well, I really want, I really connect with the numbers. Like, for example, my daughter connects a lot with some of her numbers, right? Great. You're a little more analytical, no problem. That's fine. Gosh knows, I get it, right? Don't have a swing and check the number. Have 3, 4, 5 swings. Look at you, and you're not evaluating what was my swing speed. You're looking at, okay, is it in a range I want it? Right. Yeah. Which you should have determined ahead of time anyway. Yeah. That's called goal setting. Right. And so that's the danger. The danger is you are so obsessed and focused on that swing speed number, you actually lose the intent of what you're trying to do, and you work against yourself.
You're basically saying you get so involved in that number that
it becomes an identity almost.
Yeah. Because I think too there is a little bit of a competitive aspect of where I see it, and I was only 92 on that, and like I want to go faster.
And so was 102.
Well, it might not be that. It's my own self.
No, I understand. I'm teasing
what's
you.
going on? Yeah, and you gotta hype yourself up.
I know I can do more of that. Yeah. And remember when we talked about self-talk?
Yeah.
Hype up. Not the best thing for golf, right?
Right. Maybe not if you're on the golf course or in a tournament. Or
but I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But because we can all catch ourselves.
Yeah.
But instead of it being, there's nothing wrong with saying I can do better.
Yeah.
That's great. That's motivation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a motivational, turn the music up, get amped up, get my body to go faster.
If that's what's working for you. But yeah, I mean, but the main kind of idea and concept there is just don't fixate on the number's not as important as the improvement.
Yeah.
Right? So for example, you're like, oh, 92. Right? But then the next one's 93, and the next one's 93 and a half, and the next one's 94. That's even if 94 isn't where you want to be, even let's say 102 is where you want to be, right?
Mhm.
You're going the right direction,
Right. Yeah.
right? It's
It's easy to get caught up and can get down on
yeah,
yourself, and you're like, oh, what
motiv-
happened to me today?
yeah,
I'm so
motivation
slow.
sinks. You're
Yeah.
creating the anxiety that causes your brain to begin to dislike the speed. That's the
Mm.
key.
Mm.
Is don't create an anxiety and a negative feeling that your brain is going to unconsciously associate with your
Mm.
speed training, because
Mm.
now speed is bad,
Right.
right? And when speed is bad, the muscles are tighter, automaticity goes down, injury risk goes way up. So you just have this cascade of things,
Yeah.
right? So that's the danger of fixating on those things.
Mm.
It's not really about, hey, be competitive.
Mhm.
That's great. I love that, actually. I encourage that.
Mhm.
It's make sure the competitive is positive,
Right.
not a negative
Yes.
association.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key differentiator.
Okay. So last thing, how often should you speed train? And you covered that a little
Yep.
bit a few minutes ago, where 2 or 3 times a week at most.
Yeah.
If I do it, it's going to be an every other day thing. If
Yeah.
it's 3 days a week, it might be Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
And
At
for someone,
most.
always keep in mind you're a professional
For a
athlete,
professional,
right?
right?
So your body is already tuned to be able to
Mhm.
handle that. I try to think more of, like, for example, for the average golfer.
Right.
If the average golfer does that, they're probably going to end up in one of my old colleagues' clinics and spinal clinics. And again, that's just the caveat,
Yeah.
as me saying, for you, that's actually probably a really good thing. But even then, you're probably only doing it for about 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah, and that's
Tops.
all the Speed Toad on their
Yeah.
app. It's all it is
Yeah.
about 15 minutes. It's
Exactly.
not a super long go.
And that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also the in season versus off season
Correct.
deal. In the off season, I'm gonna do it probably 3 days a week. But when I'm in season, I might only be
Yeah.
once or twice a week. It's not gonna be as much because I'm more on the course
Right.
and
You're also just more active in general. You got a little less time.
Right. Yeah, and that
to
too.
sit and
That too.
train.
That exactly.
Which is why you have an off season.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you take one thing from this episode, I would say speed is not about forcing your body to do anything. It's you're training your nervous system.
Exactly. And one of the things that we know, kind of the research tells us, is particularly in things like speed training, right? And there's a couple of other things, but we can go over those in other episodes. From a psychological standpoint and from a neurophysiological standpoint, right? That training will work best, believe it or not. And I know some of you out there are going to struggle with this. You may even struggle with this. It's okay. I'll try to explain what I mean. It's really better and more effective when no outcome is attached, right? What do I mean by that, right? Because we also talk a lot about goal setting, and then, what do you mean? We had a goal setting. That's an outcome. Let me tease that apart a little bit, right? So when you have something like speed training and you have all of these things that we've kind of went over, which is, the brain has an alarm system. You have to make sure you're not triggering. Speed is not about strength. It's about speed, and it's rhythmic. And you have to make sure you're not having these cognitive load increases of thinking of swinging harder and all.
Exactly.
Pardon me. So you have all of these kind of components that are intermeshed and working in both for you and against you, right? All at the same time. When I say no outcome attached, it kind of goes back to that I'm fixated on the number. Right? The outcome should be a little more nebulous as improvement. Now you can have markers for that improvement, but you also want to allow yourself and your body to have good days and bad days. There's days when you're going to hit 102, and there's days you're going to hit 92.
Right.
And as long as that 92 starts to average to 93 or 94 or 95, that's significant improvement. You are swinging faster. and maintaining your accuracy. So none of those alarm triggers are done. The automaticity, the rhythmic, all of that's being incorporated, but you're not focused on, I have to swing at X speed. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by when it's not outcome dominated.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And you're going to be different every day. And I know this especially as a female. It's just you're going to have your cycle and things are going to change.
Yep. Yeah. Physically, you're going to have ups and downs. I mean,
and so
even as a male, there's days I have are better than others. You know, with my spinal injury, there's days that I won't lie to you that like I'm in pain all day.
Right.
And there's days where I can click my heels because I feel like I'm 20 again.
Yeah.
Right? That's normal, and you want to accept it, right? So what I would always tell, particularly even elite level clients, but even those clients that are kind of the high level amateur trying to get better that come work with me, and I tell them, I say this about a lot of things: be curious, not controlling. That's what I mean by don't get so focused on a specific outcome. Be curious. When you're not swinging, when you're swinging 92.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going on. Am I stiff? You know what? Shoot. I left this stretch out of my warm-up, and I don't normally do that. And I just realized I did because I was running a little behind today. You just pinpointed a significant solution, right? So to go back and not to beat a dead horse, but that's where the mind should be.
Yeah.
Be curious.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. If this helped you and you learned something about swing speed, share it. Share it with someone who's just trying to be out there swinging harder. And
before they get injured.
Before they get injured. But hit subscribe below, leave a comment, share if what was helpful, and we'd love to hear from you all out there. And thanks so much.
See you next time.